Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the weekly Substrate sync for July 16th. Kicking it off, we have a agenda item about the 1.0 discussion, which we talked about last week. I don't remember what we want to talk about this week.
Yeah, there's that 1.0 substrate issue. I just wanted to, I guess, look and see how people thought we were doing. If there was anything that anybody wanted to try to take a look at tackling or something like that. See if I can find the issue.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think we did open it up a while back, and we have some stuff on it. I should probably take a look actually as well and add some stuff to it.
Actually, it was a discussion. Actually, I think.
I guess for context for folks who haven't looked at it and seen it, we're thinking that Substrate is stable-ish enough to potentially get to 1.0 to kind of make some more promises to people to be like, hey, you can use this and depend on it, and we won't change the world on you radically. And a discussion about what are things that we should have before we 1.0. So there's anything missing. I think the basic idea is, okay, make sure we should buy a handle like TPCH and TPC-DS and some of the TPC query tests, and are there any other features? And that's kind of like discussing what we should fix before.
It's funny, I'm of two minds on this. On the one hand, I look at the list and I'm like, wow, that's a long list that David proposed, which feels like, we'll do 1.0 in a year. And maybe that's a little bit pessimistic, but and so I'm like, are we being greedy? Should that list be 2.0 and we're roughly at 1.0 now, plus or minus? But so that's what I'm thinking on one side of my head. And the other side of my head, I'm like, do we think, how important is it to us to rush to 1.0? Right? Like on one point, I'm like, well, the list seems like it's pretty long. On the other hand, do we want to get to 1.0 sooner or later? Right? Like, I think having been through this before, one of the most common reasons that open source projects I've worked on get to 1.0 is so they can do a press release. And usually it's because they have a corporate backer who's involved in trying to, benefit from the whatever the open source halo. So I don't think that we have that pressure, which I think is good. But anyways, that's my main comment. Like I'm in one mind, which is like, that seems like a long list. Do we need it all for 1.0? And the other one is like, maybe it's fine for it to be a while before we get to 1.0. So love to just throw that out there.
I actually, to your point, I feel like we're in a rush to get to 1.0. In some ways, actually, I think the value of that discussion is being like, what do we want for 1.0? And I think we were like, maybe there's a couple things, and if it turns out there actually is a lot that we should do, then I think that gives us a target to work for. And then it's more a matter of like, okay, if we actually do want this for 1.0, who's working on it? Are we actually like pushing for it? Like, I'm actually okay with the outcome of this. Is like we discussed what we want for 1.0. We realized it's like 2 years of work, and we're like, maybe we decide to cut some stuff here and there that we don't think is as important. But just having a target for like, what does it mean to be release ready, right? Would be great.
I agree with your point
general...
For me, it's the same. I also think I saw the list earlier when you created it, David. I think it's a useful exercise to think about what should be part of 1.0. I also don't see a time pressure, but it's useful to, as you said, Victor, to see whether people are working on the things that we would want in 1.0, and maybe also people can align themselves to these things. Yeah, I think it's very useful.
I think we originally were saying this would be something we wouldn't finish this year, probably, just based on our rough estimates. And I think you're right. It's probably going to take more into 2026. But I think it's also worth just looking at it every so often just to see where we are and what we can change.
Yeah, I think that's a rubric for like, are we making progress? Having a bunch of things that we can slowly check off is nice, because there's nothing to be said for the interminable slog of like, okay, we need to model all of SQL to some extent, like not strictly speaking, but we want to be able to represent all SQL in Substrate, and it's like that does feel like a never-ending battle sometimes, just because there's so much in that thing. So having at least something that makes it feel like we're making forward progress can be nice. Do we need to discuss like the 1.0 stuff actively here? Or should we just kind of make a call out to be like, hey, go look at that list and add anything that you think we should do, and then kind of circle back and figure out like, okay, what are 1.0 essentials and what are things that we're like iffy on?
The one comment I would make is that I feel like that list is a list of issues. And I was wondering whether it would be better to do it in more of a structured way as opposed to a unstructured way. And what I mean by unstructured just is that like it's a text list, like as opposed to say like let's create issues and tag them 1.0 or something like that. I don't have a strong feeling about that, but that was the one thought I had is that like, you know, like someone's gonna have to go and edit that if someone has suggestions. Yeah, like having this like going where it's like, hey, there's issues and people say, I think that issue 467 should be in 1.0 or you know whatever in the discussion might be a
I actually like that same because I definitely looked at David's list and was like, oh, I want to add stuff to it, but like, wait, do I add it below? Do I do it? If we have, to your point, let's make kind of issues for like the big things we see, and then we can actually just do voting on like put a tag on it. And then it's also nice, it's to your point, it's in the issue tracker. If someone wants to take it on, they can just claim it, and it's easy to see what's like 1.0.
Fair.
Yeah. Cool. So maybe for next time, as an action item, people can make issues in the tracker that they think would be good candidates, and then we can vote on them next week, or not even vote, just discuss them and be like, yeah, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and you know, anything that we think is more borderline, we can have a more bigger discussion on.
Wait, so what's the workflow? So like instead of commenting on that thread, we'll just make issues and then people vote on if it's 1.0 and worthy.
I think like the plan would be, yeah, let's turn that list into just issues for individual things of some description. Next meeting we'll talk about it, and there's probably going to be a bunch of stuff that's like, yeah, this seems reasonable to have for 1.0. Let's do that. There's going to be stuff that this doesn't make sense to be for 1.0. Let's just not have it. And then there might be stuff that's like borderline, and then we can like vote or discuss on that. I don't think we need to vote on everything. There's probably stuff that's like TBCH modeling is probably like, yeah, let's be able to model all the TBCH queries. That seems like a pretty reasonable thing. It's like a common enough use case. And then maybe like, do we want to support gluten, or do we want like all the relations, or the specific relation is like more up in the air?
Yeah. Is there any reason to think that we don't support all of TPCH and TBCDS? I'm not saying that, like, say the Java translation or something support, like ISNA supports it. I'm saying like core spec. Is there anything missing?
No, from my experience,
Maybe a function. Like I don't know.
function, even functions, I don't think there is anything missing at this point. I mean, for TPCH.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, the task might be actually, do we support all of TBCH already? If so, we should document it and put it on the website, being like, hey, we can model all of TBCH, and here's where you can find them.
yeah. It always also depends a bit on the syntax you're using. Like we are trying to get TBCDS coverage to 100% in the Substrate Java mappings for isthmus for calcite. And one thing that we discovered recently is that the sample SQL syntax that is being used there uses the grouping function to give this grouping ID. And yeah, there is something in the spec that could replace it, but we are still debating a bit on whether what is in the spec is flexible enough to represent exactly what is in the SQL syntax. So there might be something here and there, but we're close. I think we have like 9 queries left that we cannot map out of the 99. So I think we are really close.
There's also a question there of like, can we directly model the SQL syntax, which is different from can we accurately model the TBCDS query? We're like, maybe something Java doesn't handle it, but we can actually write a query by hand or a plan by hand that actually this is the TBCDS query.
Yeah, exactly. For example, if you decorrelate subqueries, then it becomes a bit easier than handling subqueries, and like you have all of these these issues. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like that's in a good place for next week, and people have an idea of what to do. We can make a post about it in the Slack as well, and send the mailing list actually, and expand the original thing.
One small thing that I just go over David's list is I think it's better to, I don't know, like categorize these items into like some like broad area. For instance, like just general like surface area cleanup, like public documentations and APIs. I think a query endpoint is part of the surface area. And then there's like core features that we need to model, like somehow like break down these things into area that will help us to, I mean, the documentation updates is easier to follow up, but yeah, the rest are not. So
Do you have access to create tags? Would you be up for doing that?
that I haven't tried, but I can try.
Yeah, try it. If you can't do it, like Victor or David at RI will give you access, figure out what access we need to give you to be able to create some tags, and then you can like
Sounds good.
because I think that'd be useful.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel that's another vote towards using issues for this. So we can have the 1.0 issue and subcategories to be like documentation, missing feature, bug, all that jazz.
Let's just switch to Jira. Just joking.
This is Colorado or something. No, I think we're good. I mean, it's not to say that we don't mirror some of the issues in our internal Jira, but that's a different thing. People don't need to care about that.
I do believe that there's a small business there opportunity for someone. It's the some kind of system to help people manage internal, external dynamics with open source projects. Because I've never been good at it. You got the internal Jiras on some of the items, but not others, and some of them are on the sprint boards and not others. And yeah. Anyway.
Cool. I think I'll move us along before someone tries to start a startup. I had an item about the write-up update versus update row redundancy, but I think you responded to that in Slack, Jack. So maybe I'll continue the conversation there.
Yeah, the high level is that one covers the other, but the it's the goal it matches the goal for another places in Substrate where we try to create the more connected to the user intent, which also typically exposes additional optimization opportunities.
Something similar that came up internally as a use case was having the concept of like distinct baked into Substrate, where like select distinct star columns, or like, oh, you can just sort of do like aggregate group by all the columns, but having a distinct specific thing that makes sense in the same way that we have cross rel, where, well, you can technically do inner join on true, but if you have a dedicated entity on when you're doing planning, you don't have to like reverse engineer like, oh, you meant cross rel here, but it's just a lot nicer to.
Yeah. It's a I struggle with that one only because it's I struggle with it because I think I've spent so long thinking about it the other way that I kind of like it's a composition, but I think the point is right.
Yeah, we'll continue that conversation on the Slack, and maybe we'll publish it somewhere. The next item is on me on proposed committers. I made a post on the mailing list. I think Niels has been doing a lot of work as had Andrew and Mark on Substrate Java, and I was like, they keep pumping out reviews. I don't have capacity. What if they just reviewed each other's reviews? They're already doing the work well enough from my perspective. Yeah, so I made that thing. I think Weston's upvoted. You replied, Jax, but I don't know. You didn't vote yes or no. It wasn't a no, but it wasn't a yes. So I don't know if it's a formal vote. And I think then we just need. David,
yeah,
maybe?
I mean, I'm supportive. I was like, I don't have enough. Like, yeah, it seems to make sense. I mean, Weston's probably a little bit more like clear than mine was, but it was like, yeah, it seems to make sense, but I haven't spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
The question. So, I think I was kind of waiting to see what David said. I was kind of waiting to see what David said. And
I was waiting for Weston to post his to run his tool to actually say this number of posts and commits that each person has done, because he's got that cool script, which I sort of commented on but didn't. Yeah, I think all three of these guys are doing well. I think that if Weston had run his script, he may have mentioned Wendell, who's been doing pretty well over in Substrate Go, because Wendell has been going through and been doing reviews, pretty good reviews over in Substrate Go, even for stuff that's related to what he's working on. So
I'm happy to open up a separate vote for Wendell, though. Full disclosure, Bojan and I also work with Wendell quite closely here, so. Yeah.
It's awesome that Datadog is contributing so much to the project.
Yeah, we built out a small team for it actually now as well. And we have some stuff we're working on behind the scenes that we're planning on open sourcing around substrate conformance, which overlaps a little bit with BFT in the sense that BFT kind of writes SQL queries to test systems. We're taking a different approach where we're generating tests from the core specification and then also from the test cases that basically, here's a substrate plan with an expected result, run against system X, verify, and it's intentionally not SQL focused. But once that's more mature, we'll talk about it more publicly. Yeah. Yeah, people could vote on that. So if we're waiting on Weston to run the script, we can poke him and be like, "Hey, Weston, run your script."
I don't think we necessarily need to be so scientific, but that's what I had been waiting for. But
turns out he's waiting
Yeah,
on you.
but so I think David and I at least should put a little bit more into that thread. I think that's the action of it. Like,
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. The next one is table functions returning relations.
Yes, I put that there. I'm kind of curious as to whether there's been like thoughts in the community about how to represent that in the protobuf formally. I think right now we're just using the extension rel single and shoving all the details in there.
Yeah, so like for context, like internally we have like an unnest relation and a like JSON each relation. And the reason we haven't really open sourced in this, we're like, do we want to have like one relation per table valued function, or do we want to have a representation for table valued functions? And one of them is really easy. Having one relation is like unnest is really easy to encode, but like solving the table value function problem is much bigger. We did have a discussion about this a while back. Where's that Slack? Not the Slack thread. There's there's issue number 753 by Aldrin, where we talked about it a bit. Here, I'll link it in the document. And I think that we had the beginnings of a discussion. It was kind of a case study of like, what are the things you want to encode? I think that's like, if you wanted to follow up with that, that's what we'd want to do. I think at this point, it's just no one's needed it badly enough to like do that work. And that also feels like good 1.0 work. It's like, we probably should have a story around table value functions. Someone from Facebook was asking about it on a different issue when they opened the question.
Hi, I'm Maria.
Yeah. And I was like, right now, we have a workaround that we use internally that could apply to you, and then we have this issue to talk about actually doing it. But yeah, phosphor, it's someone to drive it, and someone that's about needful enough need to get it to work through it.
I'm just reading my response. I'm like, oh, that's a thoughtful response. I'm like trying to remember table value functions and the challenges. I do agree with the reason that probably more progress wasn't made earlier was this tension between like, is it a separate relation or not? Yeah.
I mean, it could be a separate relation that you encode table-specific functions into, where it's like a relation for, in the same way that we have like scalar function and window function, we have like aggregate, well, specifically for aggregate functions, you can have like table function rel, which is like, here's a read of some table. I think it's weird because I think some table functions are like generators and some are actually like unnest is kind of a weird one where unnest consumes a relation and outputs it, and just like, it's weird. There's stuff to discuss.
I would actually say on this one, I would love, Boshan and Victor, your feedback on that, the comment I made.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of trying to break it into two types. Yeah, because I kind of feel like that's like decomposing it into what are the things. Then maybe we maybe not have to tackle them all at the same time. Thinking about your specific situations, right? Like I think my type B covers a nest, and JSON for each. Yeah.
No, I can make some time, and then theoretically, the other thing is if we figure out kind of a design for it there, if we have a design for it ready, it's just a matter of execution. We can find someone who's interested in kind of have them work through it. But no, I'll make an action item for myself. I'll have a Slack reminder fire off in like a day or two.
See, I will try to understand that. Yeah, because I'm not like fully aware of all the table function types. Like I wonder if we can like classify it into just two types, or if there's like obscure ones.
Well, I mean, I think what might be very useful is for you guys to be like, hey, these are the 20 we're focused on first, or 6 or 3 or whatever it is, and say like, hey, these are the table functions and their semantics that we're trying to focus on. Because I think that's one of the challenges is if you're like thinking about these things abstractly, it becomes very abstract. So
I guess for us,
like, hey,
the thing is, in practice, we care about 2 of them, and it's like those are really easy to encode, and then it's like, how many are there in the ecosystem? And the answer is a lot in different places.
Yeah, well, and most systems support user defined, right?
Right.
Yeah, so there's definitely lots, but focusing on some to start, I think, will be helpful.
Yeah, and definitely trawl through Trino, Snowflake, Data Fusion, Postgres, SQLite, and the usual sources, and go from there.
Yeah, and the other thing I think, it would be helpful here is doing a survey of how systems express these things. Like, does Data Fusion support table functions? Does Calcite support table functions? I don't remember. And how do they abstract what they are? Yeah, because that may inform a way that we can represent it. We have an easier job because really we don't have to encode the actual behavior of the data. You simply need to state it.
Yeah, just one quick question about this. I mean, table function is returning table, so it can be appear in the front clause. I mean, I'm SQL guy, so it appears in the front clause. So it's just a relation, and I'm wondering whether do you really need that, or some of the use cases are actually user-defined aggregations, or say user-defined reducer, or user-defined just function. Like, what are the input and what is the output, and then each class of these category has like certain properties which can help for the optimizer. I'm not sure whether we actually want to define all those properties in Substrate, but just if you can also like categorize or just enumerating, dumping those like scenarios, and then we can just go look at and what are the patterns, and we can start from there certainly.
Yeah, I think that's what like the survey and taxonomy comes in. Where like we kind of have to go look and see what people do, and then figure out like, okay, what actually are like the categories? Because a lot of them are, all table value functions do show up in like from clauses, but not all of them. Yeah, unnest is weird. It could be both like in a from clause, but also in like a project. It's weird. There's a couple other ones like that.
Yeah, and it depends on dialect too. Like unnest, you can put in the select clause in like Postgres, but not in, I believe, like Trino or something.
Yeah, I think BigQuery supports it in project as well.
Yeah, I mean, in Spanner, there's a special syntax like unnest can appear in the select, but you have to specify as a select or something like that, so that you are implicitly.
Yeah. No, there's some weird rules.
You're right. Yeah, there's like hand wavy. Hey, I'm making transition from like scalar to relational and yada yada yada. So yeah, so there's some quirk there.
And the nice thing from us is like, as long as we have a thing that can model all of those things, which is probably like much easier than like, I don't really care how you express it in SQL. Like you want to unnest something, you want to like table value function something. Here's the relation. Y'all can deal with the parser for it and transformation if you want.
That's true. I mean, That brings me another question. Like for the like I guess dialects that do allow unnest in as like expression in like the select clause, like do we need a substrate expression type for that too? Or do we just like rely on the user to be like, hey, if you allow unnest expressions as something other than table function, it's up to you to like translate that into a relation. So as in like, do we want table functions, set returning functions to only be a relation or be a relation and expression? Does it make sense for it to be a function?
Yeah, that's a good question. Can we actually encode like unnest in a project? It doesn't have to be literally that indefined. You don't have to use a project relation. There's a way to maybe expand the tree out in a way that's reasonable, but it's still a question of like how to approach it.
Yeah, as a relationalist, I'm like, fuck no. But sorry. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question. Well, it's because it just violates the rules of project, right? You're just like, no, like that's not
Yeah.
like
yeah.
Actually, what we've done internally actually is if you have an unnest, what happens is we pull the we pull the unnest into its own thing below the project. The unnest relation takes an input of like the input table and expands it out into like multiple rows. So it applies the unnest operation as like table comes in, more rows come out. Then you put all the project stuff without the unnest on top of it.
So that's like more like a say correlated cross join.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like joining the regular table with like the unnested column.
Exactly.
We basically append the unnested column to
Yes.
the original row.
I think there's I think there's one thing we need to add in the substrate is I think in public it's kind of using like lateral join, which is exactly that.
Mhm.
So yeah, substrate doesn't. I don't think substrate has that thing. So that is probably another thing to add in the 1.0.
Right.
It is used a lot if you using like unstructured data to unnest something and then keep joining or keep unnesting into like a structure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always kind of felt like lateral join function Y
Mhm.
is really a table function that happens to have a interesting semantic expression, like the syntactic sugar, basically. Like yeah, like there's only certain things you can use in lateral join, right? And so I kind of feel like it's a nice way to make syntax for what is effectively the use of a table function.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, maybe we should have it. I struggle with how to represent. It's interesting going the other direction. Maybe it is that we like thinking about the opposite way, which would be maybe we have lateral join functions,
Mhm.
and that's what table functions are.
Like one case
Or type B. Yeah, type B like table functions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what in my post was what I call type B table function.
Yeah.
So yeah. Interesting question.
Yeah, I think to take a step back, I think taxonomy, and then from taxonomy, you can figure out like, okay, what are the actual categories?
Yeah,
I'm sure
and I think
that-
before don't try to boil the ocean, right? Before taxonomy, it's enumeration. Like just
that's what I mean. Sorry, enumeration is
just-
what I mean.
right,
Find all
yeah.
the examples.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll find some weird thing that's in some kind of category C, and we'll be like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, there always is. These database guys, they like to follow the relational model until they introduce some stupid new feature. And you're like, "Wow, what's this thing?"
Yeah.
Some product manager who's not from database world says, like, "Oh, this is nice. It's in Python. Let's just add it."
Just add UDPs on user-defined Python functions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so next steps on that seem clear to me. I'll try to, I don't know, enumerate through all the existing table functions and classes, classify them.
Yeah, perfect. That'd be a great motion.
Yeah.
And then I think we can probably just move on to pending PRs. I think Young Schultz is the first one. I think this one's waiting for a response from you, Tux. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like adding sortedness to the fetch rail has been installed for a while. There's
It's
an
like,
old-
God, gosh darn it, you guys. This is frustrating. Like, it's such a trivial change. How is it taking so long?
No. I value the input, but the more I think about it, I don't know. Like, so we discussed about so making like compositional. So maybe the minimal thing that we can do is introducing fetch rail with the some sort of like when there's a tie, there's we can only specify the comparison. So we specify like, yeah, these fields compare as long as the last row and these columns are tie on the following rows. So just keep emitting. Maybe that is the minimal thing to do, but to express that, basically we need to express the key comparison. So it is not just list of column, but because it ultimately it depends on the sort. So it should actually have this like sort comparison. You need to incorporate the sort comparison. So I'm going back to I explored that, and then I mean, is it really necessary to?
You didn't like it.
Yeah. So I'm still like convinced to having sort is good, but then there's another thing, which is okay. Now we are talking about like comparison, and then there are two comparisons in Substrate. One is the hash join and merge join is using join key comparison, and then sort is having its another like sort comparison. Are we? Is it somehow like worse to unify this concept and using like one comparison for everywhere where we are doing the comparison, or we just leave sort is sort and join is join and fetch is fetch. Yeah, so that's another thing that came to mind, but like that's like obviously like much larger scope change and needs more consensus. So that's the state. I believe the last comment in that PR is by me. So with fresh mind, please take a look. Let me know what you think, and I can update, and let's see how it goes.
I have to be honest. I spooled it to long-term storage, so it's going to take a while to bring it back into RAM here. But I'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
I've just posted two more PRs. One is actually I'll post the one before that is easier. One is Aldrin's PR where he's updating the way we do reference relations for subqueries to be like let's put an anchor on the relation and then reference the relation via the anchor versus this like it's based on the position of the index. So it's kind of moving the reference rel to be more consistent. I think
I'm gonna change. I'm gonna try to be slightly more accurate in your statement. I believe you mean subtrees, not subqueries.
Yeah, subtrees specifically.
Yeah. Okay.
It's updated the reference to. Actually, I moved away from calling them subtrees. Actually, like no, these are reference to other relations. They're reference to plan rels technically. Is what I think they are.
Yeah, plan rel.
Yes, and I think we're mostly on board. And then related to that, there's Tornike's request to add relations to extended expressions, so that extended expressions can contain subqueries. Those subqueries can contain relations. Those relations may be references to other, like maybe references. So if you want to put multiple relations that you could reference in an extended expression, we need to be able to put relations in extended expressions. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not sure what the purpose of extended expressions are, but I was like, I should have other people look at it and not just me. I just wanted to highlight that and push people that way.
So, a point of order. What do we want to do with these on this call versus just calling attention to them? Like, I'm asking genuinely, like, because we could talk about each of these on the call, or we could be like, hey, let's just all make a concerted effort as a group to make sure that we address these things.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like I want to push people to discussion there because like not everyone who's working on it is here. Maybe we need a mechanism that's not necessarily. I feel like we've been using the like PR bumps to be like these are active PRs that are close to completion. Let's kind of move them forward and get some momentum. And maybe we don't need to make that like a thing at the end of the meeting as much as like, hey, here's the PR of the week. Let's descend upon it and comment on it.
Yeah. Who's using extended expressions? How about that?
That I don't know. Oh,
Coco.
added this David something. Not David Sisson. Another David added them a while back.
This guy works at the Bank of Georgia.
Mm.
Does the Bank of Georgia use Substrate? No. So let me talk briefly about what was the original purpose, and we probably should put a doc someplace about when should you use extended expressions. The original purpose was in scenarios where, like the original purpose was S3 select, like things.
Mhm.
You have a storage system that has got a filtering functionality, and you want to express the filter. That was it. And so you want to have a way to represent a filter. Yeah, and it's really just the condition of the filter. You want to be able to say A is less than 5 in a standardized way, because right now everybody builds their own version of that. So it's kind of like SARGs, basically, if you're from that database world. It's like, hey, what's a standardized way to express that? So that was the purpose. I don't know who's using it and what they are actually using it for.
Mm-hmm. And this is the question where sometimes I'm like, if the intent was that, maybe it's okay to reject it, but also I don't want to be so tied to the original intent versus what people are actually using. And there's also because we don't have that documentation being like, here's what this is intended for. I can't be like, oh, you're using it wrong. But I would say I comment on the issue because like Tornag, I think it's probably just in hearing the discussion more formally as well.
Yeah. This is as necessary intermediate steps in Substrate Python builders while concurrently building up plans. Like there's an interesting question here that's the highest. So extended expressions, the reason it is like remind me, it's because it has access to the so it's a plan. So it's a plan that has anchors, right? Like effectively, it's an expression that has anchors. Sorry, it's an expression that has anchors. So we have plans, which are relations that have anchors, and an extended expression is an expression that has anchors. Yeah, the request feels weird for sure. Like, I'm wondering whether or not an alternative, just to put this out here for a minute, people can respond or not, is PlanRel, I believe, is one of two things right now. Like, I'm gonna have to look at the definition.
Two of I want to say.
I think there's two things in the PlanRel. It can either be
a or a rel
relation. Root. Yeah, a rel root.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering whether we should add expression root there.
I think that would be a good item to discuss on the PR itself.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know. Maybe.
I don't think we're gonna solve this in the next like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
I want it to be accessible to Jordan because I think he's invested in this and he's not here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other items for this meeting or things you want to talk about? Yeah, if not, we can give everyone 15 minutes back.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See you later.
See you next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, man.
谢谢朋友。